10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, we are on live and you may begin now.
Okay. Welcome everyone. As a Mexican community, we are so glad to have this special guest that is Razel Salvado. Razel Salvado currently teaches languages, work, and literature to junior and senior high school learners for the Department of Education in the Philippines. She has been in the field for 3 years currently. This designated as the Massachusetts has been coordinated to lead the field reading program coordinator and the district innovation coordinator. She continues to transform programs to not only develop the language skills of the students, but also widen collaboration with the other subject areas in the department to enlist other skills of the students below academics. She's also working on developing a hybrid teaching learning program as well as collaborating projects for theater and art with their Filipino and art teachers. We are so glad to have you here, Razel Salvado, and right now we are going to start with reading literacy gaps post-pandemic education.
Good day, everyone. Let me just share my screen. May I request to have the screen sharing activated?
Yes, it's activated now.
Thank you. All right. So good day. So I will be talking about bridging literacy gaps post-pandemic education. The past 2 years have been basically tests and extreme challenge, especially in the field of education. So let's try to go through the details and how we will be able to bridge literacy gaps, which is happening all over the world. For do so, again, I am Ms. Razel Salvado. I am a secondary education teacher for English in the Department of Education in the Philippines. Now, talking about literacy gaps, during the COVID-19, we experienced a shutdown worldwide, and this did not only affect our daily lives, but it questioned as well the many things about education. Schools struggled to provide level of instruction similar to how it was before the pandemic or pre-pandemic. And learners, teachers, and even parents struggled to acclimate the learners to a certain type of education because we had to switch to remote learning. Thus, this has affected the many things when it comes to learning, as not many of our learners are able to access the internet. Not many of our learners are capable of independent learning. So the result, we now have post-pandemic learning gaps. Excuse me. But what is post-pandemic? Post-pandemic, according to the World Health Organization, they defined it as a transition in the decrease of pandemic surveillance. In short, we are not saying that it is fully gone, but there is now a decrease on the effect of the pandemic. And yet, there are still organizations, the World Health Organizations, our own health organizations and health departments in our countries continue still to be watchful, guaranteeing that we are prepared, hopefully not with another pandemic. Literacy gap, on the other hand, is usually associated with reading and understanding. It is the difference between your child's or the learner's actual ability to translate meaning of the written words on a page and the projection made by school districts and governments for a child's ability at a particular age. So in short, when you talk about literacy gap, these are learning that are not equal to the learner's actual level. So if you have a for example, you have a fourth grader, commonly if there is a gap, their literacy level would go down to second, first grade, or even pre-primary. In the secondary level, we experience this usually because some of our learners are in the 7th, 8th, 9th grade, yet their literacy level goes down to 3rd, 2nd grade. This is not new. This is something that we have been experiencing even before the pandemic. It is just given more attention now because of the number of the learners who are affected by this literacy gap. Now, how do we identify these gaps and how do we address them? We may say that we can actually say that there are many strategies that we can make use of. Teachers in the educational field strategize, we use techniques and methods differently. Of course, we adjust our strategies, our methods and techniques according to the type of learners that we have. But there are general means and general ways to actually identify them because these manifestations are actually very common, no matter the difference of the strategies that we use, no matter the difference of the methods that we use. We will be able to see immediately these manifestations when we see that we can see amongst our learners. Now let's go back then to learning gap. Learning gap is a difference between a learner, what a learner rather has mastered. We know that our learners master a certain skill at a certain level. We understand that once a learner is able to reach 4th, 5th, 6th grade, mostly these learners should be able already to decode words, to decode symbols, to translate meaning to words they encounter, because these learners are supposed to be readers already. However, learning gap gives us a different view of that. A learner who is in 7th grade may not still be able to understand or even decode 3-letter words. A learner may experience learning gap in not only in reading itself, but in many other disciplines, probably in mathematics and science, because it affects their understanding of what they are reading. So the importance of literacy and the gap that it produces affects not only the language learning itself, but the learning of many other disciplines, of many other subjects or many other courses that they would be taking. It blocks the ideas that may come up. It blocks the learning. The lowest foundation blocks are missing because of this, of the pandemic that we have experienced. Many of our pre-primers, in short, our preschoolers, our first graders, were not able to really experience an actual teacher in the classroom, teaching them to read the words, to decode those words. Thus, that foundational block becomes missing. Just imagine a puzzle. because our mind is a puzzle. If one piece is missing, then definitely we will not be able to see the beautiful view of that puzzle. No matter how many pieces you have already put together, you will never be able to appreciate the view, the beauty of the art brought about by that puzzle because of that missing piece. And it's the same thing with learning. The foundation that was not met because of the effects of the pandemic and because of some of our learners do not actually have the actual persona that they can depend on to teach them in their homes. That is now what we have as a snowball effect. And it gets worse as time passes by. Remember the snowball, it rolls, and the longer that it rolls, it becomes bigger. And that's the same problem with learning gap. The more that we ignore it, the more that we do not acknowledge the manifestation, the more that we do not find a way to bridge that gap, then definitely the problem grows bigger. Now, there are different types of learning gap that we may be able to see or identify amongst our learners. We will be able to see these manifestations. It is actually displayed in different ways because learning gaps among our learners is manifested differently. That's why there are different types of these learning gaps. Some learners may have gaps in skills. This occurs when a learner lacks the required expected proficiency. These skills may revolve around literacy or reading, writing, or numeracy, the numbers. This is the very basic foundation that they learn. Now, if they lack these basic skills, it affects all the other skills that they were supposed to develop. Their comprehension skills, their listening comprehension skills, their viewing comprehension skills, even their vocabulary and their speaking skills. The way they communicate may become different. The way they are able to communicate or relate with other people is a type of skill, and it is actually affected if the required expected proficiency actually is lacking among our learners. The gaps in motivation, this is more of mental health among our learners. The mental health of our learners have been affected by the pandemic because some of them had to be stuck at home when they have no access to friends, they have no access to a fellow of the same age. So because of this, they may not be motivated or they may not grow an interest in learning a specific subject. This motivation usually is built when they are just learning the first steps that they were supposed to learn in school. However, since they were not able to go out of their homes, actually experience the school firsthand while they were starting school, then they are less motivated. That is the reason why they always say that the millennials or the 90s or the 80s learners, like we were more motivated and learning different subjects because we never had to experience that gap in our foundation. However, with the new learners that we have, the new generation, the young generation, had to experience that gap for 3 years at the most. And now they are just starting to adjust and learn how to encounter these different subjects. Thus, they lack the motivation. Another type of learning gap is the knowledge gap. It occurs when a learner lacks exposure to knowledge of an accurate information. With the exposure to different platforms of social media, fake news, no access to confirmation whether the information that they are getting online is a fact or not, then definitely there is knowledge gap, because they may be fed with some false information, with some fallacies, and they will not be able to clarify them. This exposure creates gap in actual information knowledge, in truth, thus create knowledge gaps. There is also gaps in the environment wherein a learner is unable to access a favorable learning environment. Not all our learners are able to grow, are able to expose themselves in an educational or a friendly or a conducive environment. Now, because of this, their values are different. The way they take in knowledge is different. Their motivation to learn it is different. Their skill development is also different. Thus becomes now a gap in their environment, and it affects learning as well. Communication problem is not just an issue on not knowing how to properly use words or not knowing how to speak well in public. It also is a learning gap, because a learner fails to express his or her ideas and expectations clearly if they have not learned the proper values, the proper manner, the proper etiquette, and the proper environment in communicating those ideas, in communicating those thoughts. Sometimes we may encounter learners inside the classroom that may not be ethical in answering us as teachers. Sometimes it gets it just we just lose that temper in handling these learners. But actually, the problem there is not just that that learner has no values or have not developed the proper manner, but probably because this learner was not able to form a proper communication skill. If a learner fails to do that, then definitely their way of speaking, their manner of expressing their thoughts, their ideas may be different than what we expect. Thus, create communication problem. Now, I'm not going to discuss extreme or extravagant ways to close these gaps. Let us just look into the 4 basic means of closing these learning gaps. These means or these tips are actually very accessible. They are very much reachable to us as teachers. These are actually already common, but sometimes we miss to manifest them as well. We miss to practice them because we put a gap in our relationship with our learners. Now, these are just the 4 basic means of bridging the gaps, bridging the learning gap, starting with normalizing asking for help. There was a time when a teacher is a teacher and a student is a student. There is a gap in that. There is a wall that separates that. Now, when we are looking at our students, usually we always see there is problem with their skills, there is problem with their values, there are problems with the way they talk, there are problems in the way they handle situations. It is probably because our learners also have difficulty in approaching us. They have difficulty in asking for the needed help. So in order to close this learning gap, it is very important, it is very crucial that we set a comfortable environment for our learners, that they may be able to talk about issues that they are not comfortable of talking to anyone else, to their parents, to their friends, to their siblings or their family members. We are their teachers. We are their second parents. We are the people that they should be able to depend on when they are unable to handle certain situations in their life, and even the way that they learn. Because the learners will not be able to admit this difficulty with their friends. They will not be able to readily admit this to their parents. But if they know that they can actually depend on you as their mentor, as their teacher, as their friend, then probably you can bridge that learning gap. Learners who are not able to decode words through reading or decode words through writing sometimes becomes worsens rather this concern, because not even their teacher are able to help them, because it was not it was not normalized in a classroom setup. So we need to be able to build that bridge, ensuring that our learners are able to approach us on what difficulties that they have academically, especially what difficulties they have in the academe. If we are able to open that communication, then we will be able to assist our kids or our learners, because we ourselves are made aware of the fact that there is an existing need for help. Thus, our learners will not be isolating themselves. Normalizing asking for help will also open doors for them to learn from peers or from other learners. Because if they are able to approach a teacher, then definitely it is also easy then to approach a fellow student who will be able to properly help them out. The next thing that we need to open is the connection. We need to be able to establish connection between students. Remember, these learners were isolated in their homes for 3 years. So going back into the classroom setting, going back into school, they have already that gap between them, among themselves, between fellow learners. So we need to rebuild that connection. We need to reconnect those broken lines. Making a connection with kids is a key component in fostering a safe space for our learners, where teaching and learning becomes an easy task. It is crucial, it is very important to foster a sense of community within the classroom, especially. We need to be able to build a community in a room, in our own classroom. We build a family within our classroom. Because if you are able to do that, not only will they be able to help each other, but they will be able to protect each other. Through that, learning will be easy. Through that, talking to our learners will be easy. Identifying causes of concerns will be easy. And resolving these concerns will definitely be easy. Third thing is this: use classroom technology. Yes, we don't all have access to technology in the classroom. However, if there is already a normalized process of helping each other, there is already connection. Classroom technology does not entail that each learner will have their own technology or will have their own gadget. It may be a technology based activity. I will be showing you after this some of the things that we usually use in the classroom. I personally use in my classroom because it actually eases many of the tasks of the teacher. Not only that it makes um, learning fun inside the classroom, it also makes your job easier as a teacher because the checking is the recording of of the learners' progress is easy. It also helps in rebuilding motivation to our learners. So that is already one of the several gaps that you can fix. Through technology, remember the learners that we have now are easily distracted. They do not have the same level of patience in learning. Their attention span is shorter than what we used to have because they are now exposed to a fast paced, changing environment, the changing world of technology. We may be able to use classrooms, online classrooms, to centralize accessible learning materials for our learner. This will also help them in creating enthusiasm, building enthusiasm in learning the subject. Vocabulary words or vocabulary learning does not always have to be as boring. Reading or learning grammar does not always have to be something tasking. It can be made fun. It can be gamified, is the term there, because we can make use of many tools presented to us as teachers. We have access to technology, we have access to gadgets as teachers. We can make use of that. There are learners who have access, and yes, there are learners who cannot. But if we use technology to bridge that gap, then it becomes interactive. In short, learners now will learn a very important skill, their social skill. They can interact, they can exchange, they can share with their fellow learners, thus creating connections, creating or building communication. We build a friendly environment. We build connection that is safe, fun, inviting, and motivating for our learners. We can also, the fourth tip that I can give you is make it part of your professional development. Remember, learning does not end simply because you're a teacher. Yes, you're a teacher, but we learn as well. We need to learn as well. We can learn in many ways. We can develop our professional skills by attending seminars, trainings, joining teacher networks, teaching groups that we can see online, and we can share strategies. We can exchange methods and techniques in handling our learners. We can attend conferences. Yes, sometimes it's difficult, and for some, it's time consuming, but it's really helpful. Another is we cannot stop studying. We cannot stop studying. May it be studying or taking additional master's degree, a doctor's degree, a doctorate degree, or we can simply just make sure that we spend a few minutes, a few hours of our free time to read, watch, um, watch videos that would help us develop skills. The thing with learning is it continually grows, it continually improves, it is ever changing. It is ever changing. New theories, new methods are always available. And through that, we will be able to do things that we were not able to do before that would help us not only professionally, but personally as well. Now, as I mentioned to you earlier, here are some of the technology that we can make use in our classroom. These technology are free and available for us. You have Kahoot. Kahoot is actually gamifying your lessons. You can convert your quiz to lessons, your quiz rather to games. You can convert your usual oral recitation in classroom to games. And learners will find it more fun. Edpuzzle and Kahoot are almost similar in a way that it makes our lesson more interactive. Edpuzzle, instead of making the usual PowerPoint presentation that we have, we can convert our PowerPoint presentations, our paper, and our handouts, our workbooks. We can convert it into video lessons, and we can share it to our learners. ZipGrade is another way of sending. It's like a Google form. You can send quizzes, you can send assessments to your learners, and they will be able to immediately see their scores. The one thing about this ZipGrade is Google Google form is actually really good when it comes to do that. It's recording. Now with ZipGrade here, learners will be able to see their progress immediately. In your end, not only will you be able to immediately see the scores of the learners, but it will also show you their mastered, their most mastered and least mastered skill. Through that, you will be able to develop interventions. Through that, you will be able to create the needed remediation. Through that, you will be able to see if you can proceed or not to your next topic. Khan Academy is a ready-made, is an accessible page, educational page, where you as a teacher can monitor learners' progress. Learners will be able to monitor their own progress. Their parents will be able to monitor their progress because there are already built-in worksheets, built-in quizzes on specific topics. And you can do that, you can make that as practice drills for your learners. You can use that as their assignments. You can even set a deadline on when they will be able to start and end answering those assignments. Slides mania. If we have difficulty with using internet in our classroom because Kahoot and Kahoot on first and foremost would need internet access to gamify your lessons. Slides mania does not only present to you different styles or different designs or creative designs, attractive PowerPoint designs. It will also allow you to create interactive PowerPoint designs that will not require you to use internet in presenting your PowerPoint. You have here the wheel. This is actually we use this. It's a picker. It's a wheel picker wherein you can encode your learners. You can create this in PowerPoint. You can create a round a wheel for learners to to be able to recite in classroom, to do their own task in classroom without having you to worry that the same person is raising his or her hand. This will picker will allow you to interactively let students know that they may be picked in your next question. It builds anticipation. It helps motivates learners to prepare in class as well. ClassPoint is an application that you may attach to a PowerPoint presentation, especially if you are using a PowerPoint Office. You can install this as an app in your laptop or in your gadget. You don't need to, or in your computer, you don't need to use internet once you're already using this, because it will give you different interactive applications that you can use offline while you are doing your PowerPoint presentation. You can do quiz, you can do timers, you can do games as well through ClassPoint. This ClassPoint application is attached to a PowerPoint Office. Kotobi is a two-way or a two application, Kotobi Author and Kotobi Reader. As a teacher, you can use Kotobi Author to create your audio book or your ebook for reading classes. You can use this for literary classes and allow learners to read through Kotobi Reader your created material, your created storybook, your created audiobook. Through that, it changes the face of learning. Here are some of the other activities that we did to make classrooms more interactive. We made learners dress up as their favorite character of their favorite book. Some learners are not actually fond of reading books, but because of this now, most of our learners, at least 85 to 90% of our learners, according to their parents' feedback, find means and ways to look for books to read. They became inspired because of this book parade. They were able to create a version of their favorite characters among themselves and discover that some of their favorite movies are actually based on books, and they were able to dress up as such. Another thing that we do is to build a more conducive environment is we did not enclose our learners in the classroom. Remember, they've been enclosed in their houses, in their homes for 3 years, learning through distant learning, through blended learning inside their homes. So the best way to do that is, if allowed, you can bring them to certain places in your campus, in your school, and have them do their activities there. They can read stories, they can write paragraphs, they can have games, they can even actually do poetry, they can plan for a presentation. They can choose any place in school that does not affect other classes. Through this, learners now becomes more adjusted to a different environment. They create that feel that their school is now a home and not another prison where they would be enclosed for the number of months, for 9 months that they are going to be exposed in the academy. We also open, you can also create this wherein you open an environment, as I mentioned earlier, open connections and normalize asking for help. Through this, we let our learners see or open up on their difficulties either by group or individually, through peer or through the teacher. We also build corners in different parts of the school, in classrooms, beyond the library, that learners are exposed to different materials. They can read storybooks, they can have magazines, not just inside the library, wherein it lets them put down their gadgets. They put it down and then they pick up a book, small books, basic books, and not only does it develop the love for reading, but it develops the reading and comprehension skills as well. And of course, we let them do activities not only with their classmates, not only with their fellow grade level learners. We also expose them to different grade levels. That's why we have merge class activities. We innovate with collaborative programs in different ways. So that's it. Thank you so much for your time. If you have any questions, do feel free. I'll be glad to answer for you. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you very much. It has been great having heard you. It has been meaningful. Sorry, I have a sore throat, and I have enjoyed. I definitely enjoyed. I hope this is the same feeling that the rest of the people have.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, it actually myself personally, I tried to, I enjoyed as well doing this presentation, and I'll be very glad to share more. If you would like to ask if, to more strategies, if you want to ask, if you have questions, I'll be very glad to share more of the strategies. I may not have been able to put them in the presentation itself, but I'll be very glad to discuss them as well.
Okay. Thank you very much.
We don't have questions at the chat, but if you want to ask something, you can just turn off your microphone.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Salvado. It's been a very interesting presentation. We have learned a lot from your experience, and there are many ideas that we will implement and try to imitate from your example. It's been very rewarding. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome, and thank you as well for listening. I really do hope that I was able to share more, and I hope that you have learned as well. Thank you.
All right, that's all, everybody. Thank you for attending this conference, this presentation, and let's continue watching the rest of the sessions for the day. Okay. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Salvado.
You're welcome, and thank you once again.
Thank you so much. We are so glad for being here with you. Have a
Thank you.
wonderful
Have a great day.
Thank you.